not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again! What a hit!
Back of the net.
Hello and welcome to the Not a Pundit podcast. I'm Killian Ginnity and I am delighted you are joining us today. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I'm an absolute football manager nut. I live out my dreams on that game. And I'm delighted today to have a man with me who's actually living that dream in real life. It is the one and only Charlie Pomroy. Now, how I came across Charlie was through the Sweeper podcast recently, where they talked about the Nauru national team. And we will get to that very, very, very shortly, because it's a fascinating story. But, Charlie, how you doing? How did you end up in Cambodia?
Well, first and foremost, welcome. Thanks for having me. Obviously delighted to be here. Yes, Cambodia it's an unusual choice for most. I think 12 years ago when I arrived, it was almost unheard of. But, it kind of happened by accident, but it was a happy accident. I left the UK back in 2010. It was a one-way ticket to India, and my coaching licenses in my back pocket and a little bit of cash in my wallet. And it was just really just to get out there and see where the world could take me and where the world of football would lead me. Landed in Cambodia. Originally, it was to do a job working with not-for-profit organizations. And the idea was just to bring them all together through football. And that's developed into, an academy, which was then very, very successful quickly. And that developed into a professional team. But we'll use that term loosely because I don't think we've quite managed to make that transition just yet. But yeah, we're getting
So kind of started off as the NGO and then ended up as the academy. Like, is there academies in that kind of sense isn't unusual worldwide, and we see it in places like Qatar with Aspire, and in the Philippines would say like the ASCALs. Was this like a new thing to Cambodia, or had this kind of thing been attempted before?
Relatively new. I think back when we started, it was only really the capital city, Phnom Penh, that had any teams. So all of the professional football in the country was based in the capital, or provinces surrounding the capital. Like you'd have, for example, Watford to London. Are Watford a London club? Some would argue yes, some would argue no. So similar to that. But Siem Reap, where we are, there was no professional club, but an abundance of talent that I felt deserved that opportunity. Not just in Cambodia, but the idea for me was I genuinely believe that the young players that we had could go elsewhere and fulfill, some football dreams. It was a relatively new idea to Cambodia, I suppose. But again, for me, I didn't set out an academy. It kind of just was a community program where we had some great players from one school, another few from another, these two over here, this goalkeeper over here. And we were like, if we put them all together, what a team we would have. And then we just decided one day that we'd go and enter a tournament, which we won. And then from there, it was like, right, we need to just keep working with this group of boys. Let's work with them every single day. And from that, it blossomed into girls' teams and then youth teams or even younger teams. And it just accidentally became an academy, to that sense. And every step of the way, we're paying the price for it now, I would suppose, but every step of the way, it's kind of just been a happy accident. It's just been the natural involvement of what we're doing. I never set out a community program for 18 months, and then in 3 years' time, we've developed an academy which will start graduating students to professional level, and then in 10 years' time, we'll have enough players that are graduated and ready to play. It was never anything like that. And as I mentioned, we're paying that price now because the jump from development to professional is so big. And it was a happy accident that we were offered the opportunity. But if I could live that moment again, I would be like, hey, we're not ready. Give us a year.
And how did that come about?
So Cambodia after COVID, Cambodia reopened its league, and they had a new company that was coming in, especially prior to the Southeast Asia Games. What they wanted was football to be the most popular sport, but one that they could showcase to the rest of Asia, that was developing in the country. So they brought in a new marketing company called CPL, and they would run the league. And they wanted two divisions. Before it was one big division of 14 teams, and they wanted two. So we were just a provincial side at the time, winning, our under 18 team was winning the provincial cup every year. And they just had an extra spot. And it was going to be between us and another provincial team. But then I'm not quite sure what happened. But on the day of the league draw, we were expecting it would be, Bansi Manjaya as the other team. So Bansi Manjaya and Next Step. Which of these two? It would be one. But we were the first name out of the hat. Like, it was just a massive shock. I was like, wow. And they put us both in. So I'm not quite sure who dropped out or who said no. But it got to that. It ended up that we had the opportunity to play. First name out of the hat. But again, it was 3 weeks before the season. The transfer window had shut. We had no money, no staff, and no players signed. And, we had to get ready to compete in our first ever professional game. So it was backs against the wall, and everybody working as hard as they could. And very famously, won that first game, to be fair.
Brilliant.
We won the first game 1-0 against the defending champions of the league.
Even better.
But again, I probably arrogantly and stupidly rested on that for a little while. I just thought, for myself, we won that opening game. I thought, right, here we go. Sponsors, investors, they'll come knocking at my door now. And, we didn't. And they didn't, and I didn't really think too much of it because I thought we were just going to go out and stroll it. But that's a mistake I'll never make again.
But Next Step has evolved into Angkor City.
Yes.
Was that kind of more about giving yourselves a location by which to claim, or was it more just the next step from moving from the more academy style to being a league team?
Pretty much that. I mean, Next Step, as it sounds like an NGO, right? It sounds like a not-for-profit, happy, lovely little place where people come and decide they want to be football players or the coaches, and we're going to help them do that. And it's all lovely people helping lovely people, and and it's wonderful. And it was a big part. But what we can't ignore is that football, professional football, is a business. Whichever country you're in, it's a business, and it needs to generate money. And the type of investment that is needed, and don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near what's needed in the UK or Europe or anywhere else. But still, for the region, the amount of money needed is people want to see a return on that, or they want to. And Next Step just had this; it just didn't have that right energy about it, and we wanted to sort of. Because we'd struggled so much in that first year, we really did want to change the image and try to, give ourselves a clean start, and give that image a clean start. And again, it's kind of got away from us a little bit, but again, we're learning every day. We're making mistakes every day, but we're learning, and that's pretty much the only thing you can do when you're making mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of image, I highly recommend anybody listening to head to the Angkor City Facebook page, where there's a new kit after been posted, and it is absolutely lovely. I will be ordering that on the home kit very, very soon. It is available worldwide at a very, very reasonable price. So check it out there, Angkor City FC on Facebook and across social. Just a little plug for you there, Charlie. So how does football in Cambodia work? You said it's a new company taking it over with split divisions, promotion, relegation, all the good stuff that we like to see. But Cambodia, other than I think maybe Kasuki Honda joining in the last couple of years, I don't think football and Cambodia has really gone hand in hand for the Western world, really, that nobody would have been really paying attention. But I just had a quick look that it was based on the Soviet model, where it's very much kind of like the police has a team, maybe the army has a team. Like, so are you basically up against like government funded entities now, or have they turned private?
A little bit of both. So we do have this was a big problem in the transition this year because they brought in the club licensing laws. So they have their own kind of national club license, and what they've said is everybody has to be a commercially run entity, and that's obviously the army and the police. Those teams have kicked up a fuss, and EDC, the electrical company, they won Division 2 last year, but they're now not here. They're gone. Because they couldn't be government funded, and the owner of that club just sort of said, "Hey, look, I was all right putting in some money if we were also getting backed by the government, but if we're not, then no chance. I don't like football that much." So yeah, it was that before, but now essentially every club is owned by a multi-millionaire here, and although we're not allowed to say it, and well, no one's supposed to know it, but we all know it. It's a secret that everybody knows and everybody talks about, but we're not supposed to. Is there are owners who have two companies that own two clubs, but they don't do anything together. They're not the same club. Of course, they're not.
A bit like in Formula One, where it's like, oh, they're not connected, but they just use the same engine.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not going to help each other out. Of course, they're not. All the best players from one team go in there, and if the player gets injured, he moves to the other one. But so obviously there is those politics that you have to kind of just stomach, and that's hard. The whole point, the whole reason for me really jumping at the chance, like I said, naively, to take this club professional. Was because I had coached another professional club here, and the way that I had been released from that job, shall we say, stung. And I knew it wasn't because of football reasons. I knew it was because someone within the club didn't like the way I operated. And,
right. Okay.
And I had hurt his feelings, and that was it. And that was the way I lost my job. And I kind of. It did sting at the time, and I was kind of eager to get back in as quickly as possible, and that was part of the reason we jumped as early as we did here. But yeah, sort of to track back, like multi-millionaire owners, most of whom aren't expecting a return on their investment. This is a hobby, something like that for them. So. We're caught in that kind of awkward space in between because, one, we don't want to be owned by a millionaire who can dictate someone's career at the click of a finger or in a bad mood. However, we do need investors in investment, and Cambodian football in our division just doesn't have enough pull. So we're kind of relying on friends of friends or someone we have to kind of push that NGO feel again, like that, that we've got young players here, we're trying to develop them. If you pay their salary for a season, it's going to cost, it's like $1,000 for their salary for a whole season or something like this. So we're having to pull that horrible string of this is still a charity whilst trying to portray that image as a professional club. And it kind of comes across sometimes in the way that we operate, hand on heart, that's kind of where we are. We're always kind of sort of pushing and pulling, between the two.
which kind of seems to be a universally felt problem across football. Because I know in the UK there's a team that I pay a subscription to called AFC Crew, and their whole thing is trying to change how football in the UK is done. So you pay a subscription every month and you become a board member, and it's very much like it's a new form of fan ownership. It's basically all ran off Discord. Would that be, or that type of a model, be something you could ever explore?
Yeah, listen, we looked down that road, and it's something I definitely want to do. So we were about to launch it at the beginning of last year, but I had this whole model planned, and I was told just to hold because the idea is a good one. It's a great one, and it will work, especially in a sort of developing country. And our story is a fantastic one. Like, from where we've come from and the connection that we have with and the things that we've achieved against all odds, people want to jump on our story. So they said, look, if you release it the way that it is now, it's going to sink very quickly. And it would just be an idea that was a good one that was executed poorly. We need to execute it better. And that's when we sort of brought in a marketing team, some marketing advisors said, right, how can we do that? And the first thing they said was, you need to change the name. And that's how we evolved there. And then since then, it's kind of like, it's one of those ideas that's in the back pocket. And we will launch it. But fan ownership and, like I said, the whole idea being, we want to be a community-run organization where, we've toyed with the idea, for example, of, auctioning one of the spots in our team, to a fan and things like this, or maybe fans vote on man of the match each week, and that player gets X amount of dollars or whatever, or you vote and you put in $5 or whatever, and it gets split, and all these different ideas where we can just interact with fans, because what we want to do is give the game back to the fans, right? It's horribly obvious to the world that it's corporately run. You're seeing prime examples of it now in terms of the money that's coming out of the Middle East, and you can see that UEFA and everybody's scared to say anything bad. Like, you can't say anything bad because we know it's coming, and it is kind of a stain on the game that we love, right?
100%.
And we all want to. I mean, I liken Cambodian football a lot to kind of non-league football in England. It's probably around that level where, there's good quality, but the money's just not quite there, and it's hard to treat them professionally or them to behave professionally when they're not paid professionally. Most of our players study and do extra studies, and most others have got part-time jobs elsewhere. So it's very much like non-league in England, and we have to find creative ways to survive, because at this point, if we were to not survive or not to finish the season, everything would have been for nothing, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I know I personally kind of keep an eye on the Filipino Football League, and you were speaking of survival there. One of the things that in the last year that they struggled with is actually keeping clubs. So I think 2 or 3 out of 10 didn't finish the year, or maybe 2 of them didn't finish and 1 did, and is now gone. Is that something that you've seen in Cambodia, where it may be hard for people to kind of keep an investment in a certain team because they don't know how long the team is actually going to be there for, or have teams kind of gotten to a stage now where they have a little bit of a tradition going, and people start to turn up and kind of are willing to put their heart into it?
I mean, we lost 8 teams in the off season. Now that's unprecedented. Like, I cannot name or see any other country in the world that loses 8 teams. It was madness. I think it was, the Sweeper podcast, so there's a company called Young Pioneer Tours, who you probably know, Gareth, who is good on the board of Nauru. So he wrote an article about it, and it was talking about CPL and how they'd come in. And before CPL had come in, we had 22 clubs. Now we have 16. And apparently football's growing. Like, it made no sense to anybody. What they've done is actually the image of the game has grown and the popularity of the game has grown. The quality on the pitch is getting better, but essentially we lost 8 clubs in the off season.
Yeah,
It's madness, and we survived that. Like, that's the biggest miracle of it all. Is like, there was an off season of 9 months. Imagine that as well, like 9-month gap between season, and we managed to stay the course and clear our debt from last year and progress. And we were ready to start the season, and then the season got delayed again and again and again, and then our investors got pissed off and ran. and we ended up starting the season again pretty much where we started last season, with no money, but we didn't have any debt, which was nice. And it was just kind of like, right, but we had to stand in front of the players and say, look, once again, we can't quite afford to pay you. We're going to try and get money. We're going to try and pay on a pay-as-you-play basis, but the club has to come first. And the little support that we get from the federation and things like this has to go into us putting on games, and that's the harsh reality.
and like you've mentioned it there, not just not being able to pay players on a consistent basis, but the fact that like yous are professional, kind of, it seems, in name only. As an owner, that must be frustrating, but even more so as a manager when you're trying to work with these guys and get these guys to like give themselves to your ideas and stick with you.
Mate, you could not have hit that on the nail. Like, this is what I've been saying, because we're getting pumped at the moment quite a lot. Like last week it was 3 games, 14-0, 7-0, 14-0. Now on the surface it's like, wow, that's horrendous. This coach must be terrible. Those players must be terrible. But the circumstances around that, it's madness. Like, on the Friday last week, I had told the players that we weren't playing the game on the Saturday because we had 11 players and 1 staff member. No money, and we had to get across the country. Like, there was no way we could do it. But at 2 a.m. on the day of the game, we were told we had to play that game. Not playing the game would mean a $2,000 fine and banned for 2 years. And
Jesus.
And I'm like, you can fine me all you want. I can't afford the bus for $600, let alone your $2,000 fine. Do what you want. But it's the ban for 2 years that you're like, it's madness. Like, so, we legally, I remember we put the AFC law in front of them and said, look, in extreme circumstances such as this, you are allowed to overturn the 48-hour, deadline rule. But they just didn't do it. And listen, I don't blame them. Like, it's a ridiculously difficult thing to run a league, especially in a developing country. And for the most part, they have supported us so much. We've missed certain deadlines and paperwork and things like this. Sometimes it's wrong or the wrong language or whatever. So, like, they have been superb with us and very, very patient. But it's those moments where, we had to release a statement after the game. Then we got punished for releasing the statement because it made them look bad. I said, well, you're making us play with 11 players and 1 coach. What does that make us look like? It has to be fair here. Like, we're protecting our image and we're trying to explain to our fans, hold on, we do care. We're not idiots. We know what's going on that pitch is not okay. It's not the standard that we want. The players are not, usually these things should galvanize teams, you know what I mean? But with us, They don't. It doesn't. But that's also largely because the man that's supposed to be galvanizing them and pulling them together is also the man that's failing to pay them, or failing to look after their health, or failing to provide the basic things for them to perform. And again, and then I'll go into the changing room and there are times where I forget that I'm the owner and I'll be their coach. But then I'm there when I'll forget the other way around as well, and I'll be the owner, and I'll be like, "How have we spent $2,000 on socks? Why are you cutting up your socks?" You know, and then I'm an owner again. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's difficult to play both parts, and you know, we've just actually brought in a new guy, Richard Hargis, who's come in, and you know, we're still sort of at the beginning of our relationship, and I think things are a little bit. Um, there's more work than he first thought there would be, but he and I are kind of wading through everything now, and we're starting to, you know, find our feet. But you know, we've just got to get to the end of this year because you know what's planned and the potential that we have is incredible. But again, it's too difficult now with 8 games to go. We're definitely going to finish bottom unless there's a miracle. Thankfully, there's no relegation, and there's going to be a revamp of the league in the summer as well. And there's a possibility they'll go back to one league, and we might get promoted anyway, which is again madness.
But even bringing it to just on a football level, I noticed with the team, based on this on Wikipedia, so correct me if I am wrong, but you seem to have a good mix of nationalities, which for a coach must be quite difficult when I think you might have a Japanese player and an American player and maybe a Brazilian player and then the Cambodian players, and you yourself are English. It must make for an interesting mix of cultures in the dressing room. I wonder who chooses the playlist.
Yeah, well, you know what? We've actually got a public Spotify playlist which anyone could go and add some songs to if they wanted to, because my players won't do it. They're all too shy. But I think there was a couple of players that put some Justin Bieber on there once, and they just got absolutely hammered. Like, what are you doing? You know, not some cool Justin Bieber. I think some of his like first songs when he was a kid. You know, like
Baby and all that.
yeah, and they got hammered for it, and now everyone's kind of scared. Our Brazilian boy Bruno, he put some samba music on there, and you know, again, no one knows what's being said apart from him, and he can't sing. So, yeah. But again, it's another area where I think when I was a younger coach and growing up playing, the changing room was a great place to be. And you always, like, as a kid, like, even when you're playing Football Manager or whatever, like, you're playing with your mate and you were like, what would your playlist be? Like, what are the songs that you'd have playing when you came out of the stadium? Like, you know, Fatboy Slim, right here, right now. Like, that would be a great song, you know? Like, I think, who is it that has that? Man City, or something, maybe. I think Man City has that song. I can't remember who has it, but yeah, like things like that. And I remember my friend and I, we were talking about once there was a club in Germany that every time they scored a goal, there would be a punk song that came on. The crowd behind the goal would just be going crazy, like a mosh pit. And we always dream of these things, but here, like, just none of it has been able to be implemented because, you know, you can't escape it. But we tried banning phones from the dressing room before a game, but everyone does their own little workouts on their phones, you know, like they do their own stretch routines or whatever, and people have their own playlists, so they just listen to their own music, and it's one of those things where you have to kind of just. I'm always really, really disappointed when I'm in the dressing room before the game because everyone's just in their own little zone, and you know, everybody prepares differently. But back when I was younger, I just wanted it to be like a high energy, come on lads, bang bang, like everyone's sort of messing around and getting ready for the game, like, but it's not like that here. You know, it's very, very in your own head, focused. Players on Facebook Live and things like this and things like that. I want to kill them, but it's the way of the world now. Like, you have to accept it, you know.
And just kind of looking at the broader scale, the Asian Cup is going on at the minute, and it's fantastic. There seems to be kind of great interest, despite America not knowing who rivals are. On CBS, but it's been some fantastic football. But obviously Cambodia is not there. Has there been a kind of a plan from the top? And I know we kind of mentioned them earlier, like when Honda kind of came in as, was it technical director, and then he was briefly manager, and then he's on the 23s. It kind of seemed that like bringing in a bit of star power, trying to bring in a little bit of a next level professionalism. It just doesn't seem to have kind of kicked on from there. So has anything been communicated to you as teams about bringing the national team forward or trying to work towards that with your players?
Yes and no. So to backtrack slightly, the appointment of Honda was a marketing piece of genius, development-wise, disaster.
Oh.
Because he's not a coach. And, it doesn't matter. I don't care what player you are, what level you've played at. Ronaldo doesn't just doesn't transition into becoming a great coach. You have to go through the steps of becoming a coach. You have to go through your licenses. You have to make mistakes. You have to, listen to coaches and develop. You can't just be, I worked under Ferguson, so I'll be like him. That's Ferguson's years and years and years of learning, and man management. And you have to go through those steps. You can be fast tracked through it, but there's no easy way of doing it. And he thought it would be easy. He thought he would just be able to come into Cambodia, and the Japanese way is the best way, and we'll turn Cambodia into a mini Japan team. And my argument would be, what have Japan ever won? Why are they good? Do you know what I mean? If anything, they are the great failures of Asian football. They're always in World Cups and do nothing. Korea have got further than they ever have. So from that side of things, I really hated it. But it was also, without going into too many details, I overheard conversations he's had, watched a couple of sessions that he's coached, and he was always more concerned with getting himself in the session than he was coaching the session. He just wanted to he kept going in and trying to show people how it should be done. Now listen, I could play at this level. I could play at this level here in Cambodia. I've been tempted to, believe me. And I might go into the last 5 minutes of a training session if it's a finishing drill, and I'll show the players how to put the ball in the back of the net, and they hate me for it. And that's my little 5 minutes of yes.
I still got it.
Yeah, still got it. But listen, if I was going to be a professional football player, I would be a professional football player. I wasn't good enough, and that's fine. But he just cannot let go. He just couldn't let go. It was all about him. And the fact that I don't think he knew anybody's name, apart from maybe the 2 or 3 top players in the country. And that was it. But the marketing was, in the build-up to the Asia Games, we need football to have a good image. And did he change the image of the game? Did he get people excited about it? Of course he did. Of course he did. And he did oversee a couple of very famous victories for us. But that was largely down to the coach that he had with him, which was Felix, who is now the national team coach. To give you a perfect example of what I'm saying, because I do have a let's say very negative history with Honda as a person in Cambodia. Like the club that I worked for, he was the owner of, and so we have a history.
Okay.
But to give you the prime example of what I'm talking about, the national team had gone away for a week to play 3 games, and they'd lost 14-0, 8-0, and 2-0, or something like this. And the players arrived back in Cambodia, were getting off the plane, showing the media their signed Honda shirt and hashtagging job done. And I was with another fellow head coach when that was happening, and he was going mad because most of the players were his. So he's messaging each one of them going, what the fuck are you talking about? And that for me was the perfect representation of what Honda was as a national team coach for Cambodia.
Yeah.
To get to finish that tour and to have given everyone a signed Honda shirt, man, come on. But Was football popular during the games? Amazing. The Southeast Asia Games, Cambodia was on show to the world and did an incredible job. The men's team failed terribly. But hey ho, everybody was excited about the future. And, the new guy, Felix was hired and within a week had sat down for an hour with every single head coach in the country.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And he wanted to listen about the challenges of every club. He was asking about players at the club. And he basically made it very, very clear to all of us, and us who had finished second bottom in Division 2 that year, he was saying, look, if you have a player that you think I should see, he goes, oh, listen, my door is always open. I don't want you to think because you're a smaller club out of Phnom Penh that we're not going to be paying attention. And in that hour, he done more for me in that hour than Honda did in 7 years.
Yeah.
And that shows the level of commitment that this new guy wants to go to. And I mean, listen, he's got a ridiculously difficult job because Cambodia is, I would say, probably developing the same as the others, but the others are starting 7 steps ahead.
Yeah.
So we're trying to catch up with Thailand. So we have to not develop the same as Thailand. We have to develop quicker, to have any chance to catch up. And unfortunately, it all, again, comes down to money. And there just isn't enough of that in the game here at this moment.
But it's a great kind of statement of intent from the national team manager, and maybe that kind of idea might help you, and his attitude might kind of inspire you in your own national team role, which is with Nauru, which is how I came to find out about you. Which Nauru has no football history, so how has this all come about? Well, first of all, actually, where is Nauru for those that don't know?
It's just above, not too far from Australia. So if you imagine Australia, if you're looking at Australia to the top right on the map, like in the Pacific. So, I've followed Paul for a long time. He's obviously had his own amazing football journey. He wrote an article about me a couple of years ago for 442. And he's just followed the progress of the football club. But I think where we kind of connect is, we do like obscure football, and things like this. And, I know Gareth, who's on the board of the football club as well. He's good friends with Paul, and they did work together on the Micronesia football before, and Nauru is something that's been in the pipeline for about a year. And then originally, I think they asked if I would be interested in being on the board and being part of the football association of Nauru, and I said, yeah, of course. Any opportunity to sort of work with this group of people and to have kind of another weird thing on your resume, an obscure football thing on my resume was too good to turn down. And then I think it was about a week before the announcement, they sort of said to me, look, this is gonna be announced. It's gonna move pretty quickly. Do you fancy being the head coach? We do have, obviously it's been touted that, there is an ex-Premier League player that's also attached to the project. And, I think for the most part, he will be the face. He'll be the face of the project. But yeah, it would be a case, it's a case of sort of working alongside him and, doing this interesting thing of, giving this nation its first ever football experience. So for me, too good of an opportunity to turn down.
And we'll always, with very bated breath, to find out who the Premier League footballer is. Do you have any plans to visit the island yet, or are you waiting for the first game, or is there any kind of conversation about that?
Yeah, I mean, plans are there's a loose structure at this moment. Obviously, there's a couple of things that need to be organised first. Namely, being kind of when we can announce the ex Premier League player, and I mean a lot of things will work around that schedule as well. I obviously will still be in Cambodia, and I have my commitments here. So for that part, we have a rough guideline of what's going to happen and when we want it to, but always subject to change. But yeah, of course, I want to. Of course, I want to go to visit. We've begun doing some research, and I've got a couple of fellow head coaches in the region that are. We're having sort of weekly Zoom meetings at the moment because the idea being what we know so far is that the AFL is popular, Aussie rules football is popular on the island, and they've beaten the UK and they've beaten Australia and they've beaten the USA in Aussie rules games. So from that, we can kind of guess that there is big physicality on the island.
Yeah.
How do we introduce football to this country? Do we go all tactical? Of course not. We're have to sort of build around the basics of the foundations of like we're a big, physical, strong team, and build from there, kind of thing. But yeah, obviously, we're
just to be very selfish and push my nationality on the world, might I suggest Gaelic football as a kind of nice in between, because we've had a lot of crossover between Gaelic football and Aussie rules, but at least we have the right shape of ball.
You'd be pleased. You'd be pleased to know Gaelic football is massively popular in Cambodia.
Fantastic.
Massively popular. I do believe there is an organisation that are trying to bring a Cambodian team to Ireland to play.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
if I can find the link, I'll send it because I can't remember the name escapes me off the top of my head, but I do know that especially in the capital, it's massively popular.
Incredible. I love that. Like this is one of my favorite things about sport in general, but I think soccer is particularly good at it, is it's the world leveler. It kind of brings everybody together for the most random of reasons, and like it's one of the things I love about your story is the fact that like you started off in the UK and did your own little thing, traveled to Cambodia, saw an opportunity to make a difference, and you've done it not only just for in a footballing sense, but each of these players are a person and their lives is being affected by this, and I just think it's wonderful, and like Nauru is just like another step of that, bringing football and an interest to somewhere that just hasn't had the opportunity yet. It's just it's very inspirational to somebody like me, where, as I say, playing Football Manager in my bedroom can never compare, but it's getting to see somebody live that dream is just wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and I appreciate people like yourself that want to bring these stories to the world, because it's not just me. There are thousands like me that are doing similar things, and again, it's everybody's love for this game that should be the driving force. Too often I've experienced in my own experience in football, it's everyone's trying to one up on each other, and it's too competitive here and there, and I don't see the football world like that. I see the football world filled with good people that love this beautiful game. That at the end of the day, the result on the field is the least important thing when it brings so many people together to experience the same thing, and have that shared joyful experience. I get goosebumps thinking about it. My wife is always complaining. She's like, "Why are you so emotional about it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's my religion. For me, this is the only way I can describe it to her. The way that she feels about, Buddha and her religion is the way that I feel about this game."
Brilliant. Well, Coach Charlie Pomroy, thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to follow Charlie, he's on Twitter at Coach Pomroy. There's Angkor City across the board, especially Facebook, I think, is where you kind of have the main big following. And then Nauru also just have their first Twitter page as of this week.
Yes.
So look them up, and I'll be tagging them all in the social posts. And don't forget, buy your jerseys, check out Angkor City on Facebook and for the games, and we'll chat to you next week.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And that was Charlie Pomroy, our first guest. Connor, what did you make of the coach in Cambodia?
I mean, it's all downhill from here, Killian. I mean, that's one of the most interesting stories I think I've heard ever, really. From a kid kicking a ball in Pear Tree Park in Stevenage, you wouldn't even think you'd live in Cambodia, let alone be a football coach there, a club owner there. I mean, uh, bouncing on to a national coach and fostering an academy. Like, I mean, the work he's doing out there is phenomenal, and I think for a football manager Stan like yourself, it's a dream come true.
Oh, like I'm already going to be making a football manager career managing Angkor City now. I want to get them to the top of the Asian Champions League and maybe do it like a nation building with the Cambodian team as well. You know, just make Cambodia the new football manager, kings of the world. But I have to say, it was fascinating to kind of get a peek behind the curtain on the reality of running a club and like how fraught it can be and how close to the line.
Yeah, like I mean, when you hear him talking about not being able to afford the bus to the other side of the country for a game, and I suppose even taking out the immediate financial struggles like that, even just the level of admin to keep it alive day by day, it kind of reminds you of non-league football in the UK. But I think if anything, non-league football in the UK almost seems a bit more of a cakewalk because of the community around football in the UK. Not that football in Cambodia isn't absolutely ginormous, but I think it's a different thing, and I think I think if Charlie was in the same situation with a non-league team, it might be that tad easier because I think you'd have more sponsorship opportunities available to you. I think you'd have slightly more football association possibilities there. When he's talking about that one, or that the kind of grant from the association only covers one of their games a year, like what's he meant to do?
I think it like with my interest in the Filipino Football League, it's kind of a similar situation where you're not just trying to get people interested in it, you're actually trying to like go against the wave of the popular sport. Like there's not that inbuilt fascination that like you'd see in England or even here. Like soccer is not our main sport in Ireland, but it's still up there, and you're like everybody is going to be kicking a ball at some point in some way, or shape, or form. And like other than Honda, who Charlie had his opinions on, like that was the last time any of us would have been talking about Cambodian football. But from now on, we now have a reason because we have a team to follow, is Angkor City, and like it's fascinating to see how one person kind of like having an idea and kind of taking a chance and going out to somewhere like Cambodia can make such a difference, because as he said himself, he was lucky to fall in with the right people and get the right people kind of around them and to be able to do what he's doing. But like you have to, people like him, you kind of have to not think of what's happening today or tomorrow. It's like where's it going to be in 10 years and 15 years, and like the legacy that's going to be left behind, which I just think is beyond fascinating. I just can't kind of like give him enough credit for it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, and like obviously you would have picked up his vibe, kind of being conversating with him, but even just kind of listening back to your interview with him, like it's hard not to buy in with guys like that. It's very much like his passion just comes across in every facet, and like yes, he's got frustrations that maybe start killing his love for the game, but you can tell deep down if he'd a quid left in his pocket, it'd be going to Angkor City FC or to the team in Nauru or helping out other teams. He's you mentioned the AFC crew model, and I know he's talked about the potential of going down that road, and with the right kind of launch of that, you'd have so many people falling in behind him, because I think he could pull on his connections across the world from his football background, but from UK, Ireland, I mean, I buy in, and I know 10 other people that would too.
Oh, like I really, really hope he does, because like
Yeah.
that'd be sick. And I know from kind of being involved with AFC Crew that like it is a game changer for small teams. Like with AFC Crew, they're able to um pay people, not a lot, but they're able to pay or give more than a team at their level should be able to, because they're in a kind of financial way and they're trying to do things clever and for the long term. And you'd imagine Charlie would do the same. But before his head gets any bigger than we can inflate it, um, is there any questions that you wished we could have got to, or that was should have been asked?
Yeah,
On
for me,
grill me.
I think from there's definitely a part two to this for sure, and a three, four, and five. I think Charlie's is definitely going to be a friend of the pod for a good time. I think I'm curious as to his motivations for going kind of out to Cambodia for coaching. And would he ever come back and try it again in the UK game, and step away from the coaching side, remain as owner, and kind of not multi-club it, but I think that's of interest to me. And I think also, would he be open? I think once he started talking about the millionaire managers, or not the millionaire managers, millionaire owners,
Mm.
I started to think, would he? I think would he be open to taking in sizable investment, or does he want to have that control, and does he want to build it in sort of a Wrexham-ish story, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's one of these ones that I don't think even he could give you an answer right now,
Yeah.
because like although saying that in the last few days we saw tweets from the club saying that like they need to sell shirts. I think it was, at the time, it was 20 shirts in 48 hours to kind of keep everything going in the way that it should. And um as I said I would in the pod, I've ordered my two shirts, the limited edition one and the home one, and I highly recommend that other people, if you can, do. They're lovely looking, and I'm very, very excited to get them. But if you are ordering, order a size up, because Asian sizes are a slight bit smaller. So if you're looking for a medium, order a large.
But
Just a little bit of advice.
they are beautiful kits, and we're not even just saying it as a favor to Charlie. They really are cool kits. But it kills me though, to see someone who loves the game that much, puts everything into it, both financially, personally, professionally, and like the fact that clubs are having to put out tweets like that to survive is, and we see it, maybe not to that exact specific level, but across the game, across the world. How many clubs right now are on the brink, just going week to week? Or we look back to COVID, you look back and think, how the hell, during COVID, it could have easily been the same as in Cambodia, where they lost 8 teams at the end of the year, which when he said that, I was absolutely shocked. Like, when you see that many teams dropping out, the fact that they still have a league going is a credit to people like Charlie, and
Yeah.
that, and I think also to the likes of Felix, the kind of new national team manager, and his appreciation, I suppose, of all levels of Cambodian football.
Oh, that was fascinating, especially when you consider like let's be very Irish centric here, and like we're waiting for the new Ireland manager to come in. Like, if whoever he may be, and if you want to find out who football manager thinks it should be, go and listen back to an episode where we actually covered that. But imagine the statement of intent and the goodwill that manager would get if they did what Felix did and went to all the League of Ireland clubs, kind of going, listen, if you have somebody that you think is ready or should be in consideration for the teams, my door is open. Here's my number. Like,
Which is like it's so
fantastic.
simple. It's such a simple thing to do,
Mm.
and there's only benefits for any manager who does that. In this case, Felix. Like, okay, say none of those players from Charlie's team get picked. Charlie's bought in on that guy, which means he's gonna, his players will buy in that guy, and their fans will buy in that guy, and that goes wider and wider and wider. And I think for, if you're in hot water in your job results wise, and you're making moves like that, that's cash in the bank. And I don't want that to come out and sound like that's why Felix did it. I absolutely don't think it is. I think he's
Mm.
just a good football man. But in the Ireland example, if you want to curry favour very quickly in this country, lean into the League of Ireland.
Yeah, and it's just it's that kind of instilling a pathway that can like push players on, like where they don't feel they have to go to a different country to make it. Which going back to old stats now, I remember from a few years ago, but um, at the time, Daryl Murphy was still playing. Shane Long was in the Premier League, and of the Irish players that are actually playing at the top level, I think 5 or 6 of them had actually played in the League of Ireland,
Mm.
and were getting all the benefits of it. This would have been under the Martin O'Neill tenure, that like those that ended up having longer, stronger careers came from the League of Ireland, and
Well, it
I
embeds
don't
a
think that
resilience in
even
you, you know.
yeah, you're playing against men that are playing for their wages, not
Yeah.
playing in youth leagues. But it was one of the kind of disappointing aspects of Kenny's reign was the fact that we didn't get to see that. And I think it's an exciting time for Cambodian football when you have a young coach coming in with that kind of an attitude, and you have people as passionate as Coach Pomroy in your leagues, and it's it's just it's really really good to see. Like they have a population of 16 million people. Um, there's no reason why they aren't reaching at least the Asian Cup at least sometimes, because like you have that many people, there's going to be a lot of talent, and yes, there is severe poverty and social and political issues in the country, but we've seen football raise people beyond that
Well,
before, and
that's the thing,
we
you
just
know,
need to matter.
in Asia and outside Asia, of course, social economic situations affect a country's sports program. But you look around at the likes of the favelas in Brazil; they've put out some of the best football players the world will ever see, and you just hope that that can happen for a country like Cambodia, and with a population of 16 million people. There's got to be 22 lads and 22 women in that country that can put up a good fight, and I'm excited to see what they come up with. And I had to laugh when he said that Japan were the biggest failures in Asian football. That
That's a
was
spicy take.
yeah, that was interesting between that and his absolute admiration of Honda. It definitely was a kind of a coddle of opinion, shall we say?
Well, I think as you said, we've set the bar high on our first one, and I'm excited for our next one. And we will be back to our regular, normally fantastic podcasts and next week. But just because Charlie did mention it, I do want to put in the name. It's Carger Kaima is the GAA club, and
Oh yeah. By the way, sidebar. I know we're wrapping up there, but that was I thought he was making it up, but like that is absolutely wild.
no, it's and I have an article here. They formed in 2017. It's a combination of two cities, two of the largest cities, Siem Reap and Phnom Penh, I guess. Apologies for butchering any pronunciations, but they have even reached the final of the South Asian Gaelic Games, which is. Did you know there's a South Asian Gaelic Games? So yeah, that's another one to check out. Like the players are like are in the minority on the team. Like they're mostly Cambodians. Um,
And let's face it,
so
they'd be a million miles better than us. So, you know,
well, who knows? And maybe hopefully it'll reach Nauru now via Charlie. But yeah, so it's Karajakaimer. Check them out online. Another one. So if you're not fully invested in soccer, well, at least there's the GAA for you in Cambodia, because that's where it is at. And that is where we're going to leave it. Connor, thanks very much for joining me for this little kind of debrief after the interview. And we'll chat to you next week.
bye bye.
I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again.
What a hit! Back of the net.